Hello and welcome to another Sarah Dessen novel. Today is Once and For All. What I liked most about it was how it's kind of a palate cleanser. Usually my palate cleanser is Harry Potter because I read a ton of books and very few of them actually impress me. I just go back to Harry Potter, one, because I enjoy it, and two, because I don't have to think too much about it. I said, oh my gosh, if I'm gonna do a week and a half, 2 weeks of straight Sarah Dessen, I gotta get that stuff done now. I got back in with Once and For All. I liked how kind of clear cut it was. How even though she has this really annoying tendency to have super quirky characters, I didn't have to read between the lines. There wasn't a whole lot of work that I had to do to understand what her point was. In this novel, the main character is Louna. Her mother, Natalie Barrett, and her mother's business partner, William, own a bridal business. They're the best in the biz, and she works for them. A wedding not too long ago, she had met this guy named Ethan, and he was her meant-to-be, but something tragic has happened and it has disillusioned her towards love, which falls in line with the fact that both her mother and William are pretty cynical when it comes to relationships. When they have their weddings, they always make bets as to how long these marriages will last. It works in Luna's favor now that she has suffered this heartache. We open with the wedding of, I forget their names. Yeah, I don't remember her name. I could look it up, but I don't feel like it. This woman, it is her second marriage. No, I think it's the third marriage for both the bride and the groom. But the bride has 2 grown children. The son is Ambrose, and he is a Lothario. Wedding is starting, but there's no bride because Ambrose is not there. Louna is enlisted to go find him. She finds him in the parking lot chatting up with one of the club employees, and she literally drags him away from this conversation. At this point, we learn that she does not dance at weddings and she is not going to succumb to his advances. However, Ambrose, he's the quirky guy. He's a ladies' man, but he walks to the beat of his own drum. So even though he's like super cute and he can get any girl he wants, he is not monogamous. He can't drive because he had his license taken away from him. And there's just all kinds of things about him that are supposed to be endearing. He's a little over the top for me, at least from the beginning. He tones down later, but I'm just like, Dessen, can't we just have some normalcy out of you? Bride 1, her grown daughter is also getting married. Then they are going to cover her wedding. To kind of keep Ambrose out of everybody's way, the mother enlists Natalie and William to hire him on. Now he's going to be working with Louna over the course of the summer. They then make a bet in which he will be monogamous and she, who has not dated since whatever happened with her boyfriend, has to be a serial dater. So essentially it's like Freaky Friday kind of thing where they have to be the other person. If she loses, he gets to choose who she dates. If he loses, she gets to choose who he dates. A little bit of background on Louna. Her parents had met on some hippie farm. Turns out her dad was kind of some trust fund kid who really wasn't cut out for this kind of life and eventually abandons his wife and child to go back to the easy life, and then he dies. She is brought up by Natalie, who doesn't have a lot going for her, but through grit and determination, she creates this business. She brings William on, and now they're the best of friends, and they have a thriving business. However, they have no love life. Now Ambrose is in on the game, and he's an annoyance to Louna. She is very black and white, very cut and dry, and he's like, but what if we also did this? They're butting heads, but she is also set to graduate from high school. One of our first interactions with her is her best friend Jilly. Jilly and Louna are as different can be, and I simply do not understand why they're friends. Even before whatever happened with Louna and her boyfriend, it feels like Louna has always been a bit more reserved and level-headed, and Jilly is boy crazy, always getting into things, even though her parents have 5 kids and they own a food truck business, and so they're never around to take care of all their kids, so it falls on Jilly. I think that's what bothers me, is I don't understand how Jilly does it all. In addition to that, I'd be like, I get it. I'm your kid. I have a responsibility to help you out, but I'm not your babysitter. The fact that they take such advantage of her and she doesn't complain, that's suspect. She and Jilly are at the mall while she is trying on clothes for their graduation parties. The sales girl is watching the news and it turns out there's been a school shooting and Jilly's like, let's get out of here. So that's our first clue, that somehow school shootings are tied into Louna's past. She had met Ethan when her mother had been taking care of his sisters. So he had some messy family history. Dad leaves the mom for another woman. So now someone on his side is getting married. He's like, we need to rebond, so you get to come with me. Even though he doesn't really seem to like Ethan very much. Not the point. The point is, Louna has noticed him. He has asked her to dance. She has given her party line about she doesn't dance at weddings because she's on the job. Afterwards, she encounters him on the beach. They spend the entire night together. I mean that in more ways than one. He ends up leaving to go back to, I think he's in New Jersey. This is probably the second time I've read this particular novel. But what I do remember was that Ethan had been killed in a school shooting. Jilly is at Louna's house. Louna had a dress and a pair of shoes that she had only worn once at this wedding. When she'd come home, she just put them away and she hadn't touched them. And then after he died, it was like a shrine. So Jilly is like, oh my gosh, you got a new pair of shoes? Reading the room, she realizes, oh, they're not new, they're just hands off, because Jilly, even though they're not actually the same size, she's always stealing Luna's clothes, even though in my impression, or like in my mind, Louna is just boring. She's kind of like Auden. So I'm like, why would Jilly even want to borrow Luna's clothes? One, it doesn't seem like they actually fit her. And two, they don't really seem like her style. And three, it seems like their relationship is symbiotic. I don't really know who the parasite is here. I feel like it's more like Jilly is the parasite taking advantage of Louna because Louna can't say no. But it could be Louna is the parasite because she has no life and Jilly is just carrying her along, trying to keep her in life. Where was I know what I was gonna say. The one thing that I distinctly remembered from this novel was how he died. But then early on, Jilly makes a comment about how she's been there. And I was like, I thought he died. And there's a huge difference in a breakup and the death of your significant other. And at the age of 16, of course it's love and you're gonna be together forever. So there's a huge difference in those two kinds of dissolutions of a relationship. I was so confused. At this point is probably when I really stopped liking Jilly because I thought it was so insensitive. I know Jilly's a character, but I found that really strange verbiage for Dessen because I think she's really intelligent in her character's speech. And so I thought it was really odd that Jilly would brush off whatever Louna was feeling or like how she was still dealing with it, which, okay, you know what? If my best friend was doom and gloom for like 7 months, I would probably be tired of it as well. But would I say something so insensitive when we're not even in a fight? Probably not. Go back to, I knew that he had died, but I couldn't remember the details. I was being very cynical myself because we know I'm just cynical when it comes to romances. Why is this one day of interaction with this guy affecting her so much? Well, it wasn't just one day. They resumed their relationship for an odd number of months. And then one day they're talking on the phone in the morning. He's telling her how he has to go see his lacrosse coach before classes start. The next thing she knows, Jilly is like, have you heard the news? And she says, no, I haven't. And Jilly is like, there was a school shooting and it was at his school. Of course, Louna is convinced that he's okay because his first period is nowhere near where the shooting occurred or where the shooting started. until she remembers one important detail. He had gone to see his coach, which meant he would have been at the gym. That's about all we get, which to me was disappointing. But I like that kind of stuff. We didn't need more of it for the novel, but for me, it's just an emotional connection. I think it was an imprint because Columbine, which was the first big shooting, occurred when I was about 12, and so it just imprinted itself on my psyche. So whenever these sorts of topics come up, I'm just super interested. And so I kind of wanted to know more behind it, but that wasn't the point of the story, so I cannot fault Dessen for not including more of it. But it does majorly impact the way that Louna lives her life and how she can't get invested in her own life for the ensuing months. Back to the beginning where she and Ambrose are enlisted to work together. She just thinks he's the most annoying person ever. Jilly is trying to get her back in the dating game, and she's like, well, you know, what's wrong with Ambrose? And we just keep seeing how Ambrose keeps misleading girls until one day he gets caught. He had hung out with one girl, and then he said, we'll do lunch tomorrow. But then he was hanging out with another girl, and I guess he stayed over at her house to some capacity. I don't remember. They are hanging out in the afternoon, at which point he's supposed to have lunch with this other girl. The other girl shows up, and then naturally Ambrose, who had lied to her about where he was, he steps in with this other girl. Truth comes out, and this is when Louna and Ambrose decide, let's make a bet because I don't like the way that you do things and I don't like the way you do things. Another spoiler here is that Ambrose liked Louna from the beginning, which I don't know how I feel about because he is such a Don Juan that it was just kind of skeptical to me that he would transfer his affections to her and he would maintain his affections for her throughout this novel, whereas with everybody else he just kind of flips through them. It doesn't mean anything to him. Perhaps that could be because he wanted Louna and so all these other girls were meaningless to him. But we see them going through all these other weddings, how he grows as a character, and we also see her growing and changing too. He does at some point steal a dog, which I read someone's review about how flippant and two-dimensional he comes across as being, but really he is a very caring, thoughtful person. Stealing this dog is an instance of that because the dog was not necessarily abused, but he was kind of neglected, slightly abused by his owner. And he sees the owner's treatment of this dog, and so he takes the dog and he names the dog Ira. They had been working a wedding. The ring bearer had gone missing. It turns out that this little ring bearer, whose name was Ira, had come across Ambrose's dog, who he had brought to the wedding and tied up outside. Whenever they were calling for Ira, the dog would bark, ergo the dog's name is Ira, and his signature look is a bandana. I don't know. I wanted more from Ambrose instead of being just kind of this flippant character who didn't seem to care much about others, but then had a heart of gold deep down. As Louna is trying to serial date, my biggest thing here is, so she's 17, and this is kind of what Jilly's role is to be that person who has dating options for her friend. I just kept thinking, isn't that easy to find dates? It wasn't easy for me. It's still not easy for me. I think that's one thing that annoyed me about this novel as well, is Dessen makes it look so easy to just find a guy who will go on a date with you. All of them were duds, but still, even these guys who actually were into her and they would rather do like their geeky thing instead, at least they were willing to go out with her or pretend to go out with her, even though they don't even pay any attention to her. We're always seeing her and Ambrose having to get Natalie and William's coffee orders, and there's a barista there named Leo, or she calls him the lumberjack, until eventually he happens upon them in their conversation. He learns about the dating thing and he's like, well, here's my number. She texts him and they go to a party together, only for it to not go well. He turns out to be super possessive and he does not handle well the fact that she doesn't want to continue dating him. From this, however, Ambrose meets Lauren, who is his best friend and had just gotten out of a very serious, very long-term relationship with her boyfriend. This is when Louna starts getting jealous because Ambrose seems to really like Lauren. We see that green-eyed monster rising up in Louna no matter how much she wants to deny it. At some point, one of the brides cancels her wedding. Another potential bride had said, we want to do a destination wedding, to which Natalie and William are like, we don't do destination wedding. There's too much risk in doing a destination wedding. But what we will do is we will take you up on your offer to go scout this location and basically have a free vacation during this period when we were supposed to be doing a wedding. They go off and William, so as I said, they were both cynical. They had both been single. Basically, they were both each other's best and longest relationship. But we earlier see Louna go to the Trader Joe's of the area. And this was, I thought was kind of annoying because William is one of those guys who just exudes authority. So no matter where he goes, everybody thinks he's an employee. So they go into this Trader Joe's. Everybody thinks he works there and they're asking him where stuff is. And I was just like, again, this is one of those characters who it's just too much quirk. Why can't he just be a guy who goes to a grocery store? In the midst of all these people asking him for his advice and directions, they happen upon this guy named Matt who works there and I think works in the deli. Louna picks up very quickly on the fact that William has had a couple dates with this guy. Fast forward to their Bahama or Jamaica or whatever vacation. During a phone call, Louna realizes that something's up with her mom and her mom has met a man. So now all three of them are all loved up and I was just like, I mean, I get it. That's kind of the trajectory of this novel where these people who didn't believe in love all of a sudden found themselves in love. These people who were just going to be loners forever are no longer going to be loners. For Louna, they'd been at another wedding where she ran into an old classmate named Ben. Ben had also just gotten out of his own long-term relationship. She just was never able to get together with him. It just wasn't aligning that they could get together. So my thought was, the poor guy, he could be a good match for her and they could never make it work and then she'll get with Ambrose and just poor Ben. No, she and Ambrose are introduced to Lauren's cousin, Mia. Mia is marrying Roger. They are a young 20-something college couple, but they're going to do the most basic wedding ever. And Ambrose, who is now a wedding aficionado, is like, we cannot have this. Why don't Louna and I help you out? And Luna's like, absolutely not. This is my weekend off. You can do whatever you want. Only for Ambrose to get in way over his head. And he's always asking Louna for advice. And since her plans with Jilly get canceled, she's like, sure, let me help you. They are getting this wedding together. There's a moment where she has her moment of realization that she likes Ambrose and she's pretty sure Ambrose likes her. She is ready to take it to the next level, only for him to then approach her and be like, so why didn't you tell me about your boyfriend? Because this whole time, she has made it sound like it was a really bad breakup. She gets so affronted because he had talked to Jilly. So on one hand, I'm like, Jilly, why are you spilling all these beans? Like, you should know your best friend well enough that you don't need to reveal these kinds of details unless you know for sure he already knows. So it actually sounds really manipulative, like she's trying to torpedo something. I don't understand her reaction. I would have been more upset with Jilly than with Ambrose, but I guess she didn't like the pity or something that he was coming at her with, and that maybe there was some kind of judgment there. At what point did he do something offensive? except that he tells her, I was coming ready to take this to the next level, but now I'm concerned, I'm worried, and I feel terrible that I have demeaned this relationship that you had with this guy because I didn't actually know what happened. She's like, out of here, don't want anything to do with you, don't talk to me again. And on her way home, she is approached by Ben. She's all loved up with Ben while her mom and William also have their own relationships. And now we're coming to the end where we realize like she doesn't like Ben. She just doesn't. She won't admit it, but there's no fire there. Jilly does not like Ben. You know what, at this point, Jilly, I don't really care what you think because I don't really understand why you're in this novel. It is Luna's birthday. William gives her some flimsy reason to go upstairs, something about shoes. She goes to her closet, she sees the shoes, and she has another revelation about needing to move on. Accepts the fact that Ethan was her great love, because she has this idea about what a great love is and how none of these other people can be her great love because this is what a great love should be like. She hears voices, she comes downstairs and she finds William shutting the door and she's like, what's going on? Who's at the door? And she freaks him out, and it turns out that he had made her a chocolate chip cheesecake, but then when he put it in his car, he dropped it and it went everywhere. So he then asked Ambrose to go to like a local bakery to buy a cake. Now she's feeling kind of bad because he was given full reign as to what to get. You know, pick out what you think Luna will like most, and he does a great job. And then not only that, but he puts a really sweet, meaningful message on there. Ben shows up, all the couples are there, only for Ben to say, hey, I'm sorry I was late, but there was this accident, there was a dog, there's a bandana, this guy ran in the road, and she's like, oh my gosh, it was Ambrose. She realizes she doesn't care. She doesn't care how she used to feel about him. She doesn't care about all this stuff. She just needs to put it all behind her and accept that she likes Ambrose. She ditches Ben, runs down the road to where this accident happens. She is trying to get a better look at the body, and the policeman is being a total douche to her, only to realize it wasn't Ambrose and it wasn't Ira. And they live happily ever after. It was a nice, simple book. I feel like it was one of her better books. I liked the depth of emotion that Luna had to work through. So while it felt really simple and easy, there was a lot to unpack. I can't wait to hear what you think, and I can't wait to hear which one's your favorite. Bye.